Good morning, Royals. How is everyone doing today? I hope everybody is doing absolutely phenomenal. I am currently at Walgreens. I do have a military medical examination that I have to do because I am not active duty and I'm in the reserves. Everything that we have to do it on our own scheduled time. Don't worry about it. The military does pay you for it, so don't even worry. You just have to submit the documents that you actually did your medical work, and then they will pay for it. So since I'm here and I have like 10 more minutes to wait, I figured I'll do another video. That way I can answer directly a few questions, because I find that when you want specific answers sometimes to certain questions, you don't get it. And the question I'm going to answer today, which I get a lot: what documentation do I need to take with me when I'm going to basic training? So when you go to MEPS is going to give you a list of documentations that you need to take. I followed it to the T. Remember, if you don't know, I'm originally not from here. So those of us who know that, those of us coming in from West African countries, maybe other countries are the same, but I can only speak for my country where I came from, which is Ghana. Trying to get documentation is the hardest thing you can ever imagine. So once you get a hold of it, keep it with your lifeline. Every documentation I personally used to apply for my paperwork, so my certificates, my birth certificate, my education certificate, my marriage certificate, the birth certificate of my kids, the copy of license from my husband, copy of birth certificate of my husband. I took everything with me. I actually took the originals with me, and I'm going to tell you why it saved me. I will put in the description box the list of documents that is going to be given to you at MEPS when you go. But the ones that I took, which is actually similar to the list, was the original birth certificate of my kids, the original birth certificate of my husband, my birth certificate, my college degree certificate, and all of this is the originals of my lease agreement, and I'll explain why I took the lease agreement. The lease agreement was for me to be able to get BAH, is the housing basic allowance for housing that the military gives you. But a copy of your lease is going to show how much you're paying. And your name should be on the lease. I've had this question before where people have leases, and actually in basic there are people who had leases that didn't have their names on it. If you don't have your name, or the name of both your name and that of your spouse on your lease, you are not going to get BAH. It means you are not really paying on the home. Even if you're paying and you don't have your name on it, forget it. So make sure that the lease that you're taking shows that you are on that lease. That's how you're going to get your basic housing allowance paid to you, and that is your rent. So whatever rent that you're paying, the military is going to pay you, but you need to show that you are actually paying that rent, not just telling them you're paying that rent, if it makes sense. I took the originals because when it was time, so when I went, they keyed in, and I'm going to breathe here because all the documentations that my recruiter had told me that were keyed in the system, when I got there, they told me that most of the documentation were not there. My saving grace was because I had all of the documentation with me. If not, they were going to keep me at reception till I got all those documentations with me. So I don't know I'm not bashing my recruiter. I am saying that it happens. Even though you will be told one thing, you can get there and another thing will happen. And then when it happened and I called my recruiter station and said, hey, I did give all these documentation, but they're saying that these are not here. They said, well, we can see it in the file. So please, to help yourself in this situation, please go ahead and take your own documentation. A lot of people are like, well, what if I take my originals? What happens if I lose it? Remember the video I talked about your electronics, that they're going to keep it safely for you. So when you take personal items, when you get to AIT, when you get to basic training, they're going to let you put all your personal items in a black duffel bag. At least for our basic training in Missouri, that's what they did. You're going to keep all of your personal items in your black duffel bag. So in there, you can throw all of your original documents in there, and that's what I did. And then you're going to put it under lock and key, and they're going to keep all those items safely for you until it's time for you to leave, and they'll give it back to you. So if you're worried about it, don't worry about it. If you're super worried that you're going to lose it, what you can do as well is mail it back. So for me, I was able to mail some of the stuff that I wanted to mail back. Remember to buy a bigger envelope when you're going, because the envelopes that you buy are the smaller ones, so you won't be able to mail large documents with it. So make sure that you buy the bigger envelopes with you. That way you can mail all those documentations back. I was lucky because I had my original documents there, the paperwork that they needed to send to my husband to get dependent ID. And if your kids are older, they're going to send the documentation as well for them to be able to get a military dependent ID card. Because I had the original document there, the people are Deers. Deers is where they process all of your personal information, your pay and everything. That's where it goes through. The people processing it sent my husband the documentation stating that they have already seen the original documentation. So my husband did not need to send any original documentation. All he needed to take was himself and an ID card. That's all he had to just take his whole self over there and then take an ID card. But if you don't take the originals, they're going to ask your spouse to take original documentation there. And if your spouse does not know, honey, I'm not even putting you on blast right now, but if your spouse is not good in keeping original documentation and trying to find where original documentation is, they won't be able to get their military ID cards. But if you had presented the originals over there, then all your spouse would have to do is just present their whole self and an ID card, and they will be able to get a military dependent card. So again, I wanted to make this video very short and just go straight to the point. I did take original documentation, everything. I took the originals. That way my life was 10 times easier. Your recruiter is going to tell you don't take it. Please don't listen, because mine told me don't take it and I didn't listen, and I took it, and it was a saving grace for me. So please go ahead and take it. What is wrong? What are you going to lose? If they tell you they don't need it, you just mail it back. If they tell you they need it, you just have it right there on hand. Especially with the foreigners, those from here, it's easier to get documents in America. Coming from a foreign country, it is harder to get it. So if you have it, please just go ahead and submit it, and you're going to be all kinds of fine, I promise you. Once again, thank you for watching. This is Queen Sheila. You can call me Queen Full Auto, whichever you prefer. Have a safe day. Be safe. I need to go for my appointment. It's time now. Bye.